Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we are going to talk about the Republic of Moldova, a tiny nation sandwiched between Romania and Ukraine. It is a former Soviet socialist republic which became independent in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union. It was one of the richest states in the former Soviet Union, and today it is perhaps one of the poorest countries in Europe. The problems facing the country are massive, yet Moldova is showing great progress towards democratic institution building. Moldova had presidential elections in November 20. The voters ousted the incumbent pro-Russian president Igor Dodon, electing Ms. Maia Sandu, pro-Western, Harvard-educated former prime minister. Sandu has become the first female president of this former Soviet republic with a population of 3.5 million. With us to talk about Moldova today is Dr. Natalia Albu, a distinguished APCSS alumna. Dr. Albu is the director of the Strategic Research Center, LPSRI, and she's associate professor at the Military Academy of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Moldova. Her fields of interest include Black Sea regional security, national security, analysis and evaluation of vulnerabilities and threats, and integration of the gender perspective in security and the defense sector. Also with us today is Ms. Elena Marzac. She is the Executive Director of the NATO Information and Documentation Center from Moldova. Prior to her tenure in the current position, she worked for civil society organizations, government, and academic sectors. Ms. Marzac is a strategic communications expert, a specialist in public diplomacy, and in promoting the role of women in the security and defense sectors. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today in this session on Women, Peace and Security, Conversations with Thought Leaders, hosted by the Daniel K. Inouye Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies. First of all, I would like to congratulate you both on the election of Ms. Maia Sandu. She is very accomplished, the first ever woman president. She won with almost 58% of the vote against 42.3% for the incumbent president, Dodon. How did she win, and what does her victory mean for Moldova? Elena, would you like to go first?
First of all, thank you very much for your invitation and for the interest for our country. Yes, we are a tiny country, somewhere switched in the Eastern Europe, but yes, now we are very proud to have our first female president, and for us it's a sign of winning of the democracy, and it's a sign of hope for our country, first of all, and for all women from our country, but from the rest of the Europe as well, that a tiny woman like Maia Sandu, so brave, so courageous, and so strong and intelligent, is our president, and we are waiting for her activities in the area of international relations and internal policy.
Natalia, what are your thoughts about Ms. Sandu's election and its implications for Moldova?
Dear Sarah, thank you very much, first of all, for invitation and for interest. I received a lot of congratulations from abroad, but the election of Maia Sandu, it is also an achievement for women, peace and security agenda at the global level, I think, I hope. But recently, on December 10, Moldova's Constitutional Court confirmed Maia Sandu presidential election victory. And the inauguration will be held by end of December. It's a great for us. But previously, all the media highlight that the victory of Maia Sandu, it is a victory of democracy and pro-Western preferences. I agree with that, but at the same time, her election campaign was primarily directed against the country, directed against the current leadership. I will focus on some issues that help or were decisive for her victory. First of all, Maia Sandu broke stereotypes regarding women in politics. The fact that Maia Sandu won this election as a woman in a country as conservative as Moldova, yes, is a conservative country, is revealing of the ongoing social transformation in the region. We can say that democracy in Republic of Moldova now represent Maia Sandu. Very important factor is the mobilization of our diaspora, of Moldavian diaspora in the West. And very interesting thing it was when after first round, incumbent President Don used very aggressive rhetoric against our diaspora because they voted Maia Sandu. Another fact that were decisive for her victory was that people don't think now about geopolitics issues. We cannot neglect the economic factor, a prosperity, were decisive in this situation. First of all, I would like to show you some data. For example, in 2019, the export to Russia were only 8%, and export for European countries, 60%. It means that we are oriented for our prosperity to European Union. In this context, we have really reason that it's not only about geopolitics. During her campaign, Maia Sandu avoided anti-Russian and geopolitical messaging. Instead, she focused on anti-corruption, on democracy, on prosperity, on education too. But it was very smart strategy because our candidates, our rivals, explored this geopolitical approach, and they have together only 7% during the first round. And certainly in our country, people believe that democratic development in European integration is very vital for their lives. At the same time, the very important factor that ensure a victory for Maia Sandu, it is that she mobilized all people. Our society are very divided, but she find issues that help to mobilize our people. And now the big part of voters opting in favor of Maia Sandu, who does not only project the image of an honest politician, but is really a person who pursues the public good and personal interest. And I would like to show another factor, and I will use the analysis of our local expert. It is about Dumitru Nazarai, that said this all background, all situation, all context that helped Maia Sandu to win, suggest that her presidency will be not quite easy. Position is very fragile. In this context, Maia Sandu and the Republic of Moldova need additional support from European Union, for example, United States, our strategic partners, and in our case, it will be very difficult to have easy presidency and to consolidate our societies. But I will hope that she will repeat during her mandate, she will repeat her performance.
Yes, and I would like to add to Natalia's observation that this year the campaign wasn't a typical one, and the world geopolitical cleavage was not so pronounced. Yes, I totally agree that the candidate, especially Maia Sandu, promoted democratic values, anti-corruption measures, and to develop the level of the Moldovan level of life. And we really witnessed an information war against Maia Sandu. I would like to mention some of the narratives that were very popular during the pre-election and election period, that Maia Sandu is financed from stolen billion, you know, the renowned problem of Moldova of this stolen billion. Maia Sandu wants to distract the country because she's a unionist, so together with Romania. Maia Sandu is Russophobic and will ban Russian schools and has labeled Russia as an aggression state. That Maia Sandu will close country for the next 2-3 months due to the COVID pandemic, and she will close schools, that she will freeze pensions and wages. So many scarecrows, manipulation, and fake news oriented towards Maia Sandu. But becoming the first Moldovan female president, Maia Sandu breaks the rigid glass ceilings that we already mentioned, and that only few women could achieve in the post-Soviet space so far. And Sandu's road to winning the presidency was quite difficult, and her opponent, President Dodon, at that time, specifically targeted her specifically because she is a woman. Particularly the 2 weeks preceding the runoff election, Sandu was attacked that she is not being married, that not having a family, not having children. And these misogynistic and sexist comments are among the main challenges that and fake news that she faced, not only now in the campaign 2020, but earlier 4 years before in 2016. And we know that Moldova has the 23rd highest global gender gap in the world, placing it between Colombia somewhere and Trinidad in the world gender list. So this is for us is indicator, and it's a way to follow and to continue in promotion of women for such a high level positions like president or prime minister or different ministers, especially in the area of security and defense. And one point I would like to highlight as well is the role of diaspora. Natalia already mentioned, because the diaspora played an important role. Why? Especially the diaspora from the Western countries. It demonstrates that young people that immigrated to these Western countries like Italy, France, Great Britain, Germany, they already understand the importance of these democratic institutions, of the European values, and they would like that in their countries as well. People would like to live as in this Western developed country. We know that more than half of population is already considered diaspora, and mobilization, it was something special the first time in the history when diaspora played such an important role. And another very strong point, this Maia Sandu brilliant, I would say, winning of the election once again is the indicator of fighting with corruption, what is the number one problem
Yes.
in our country.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you both for providing so many rich insights about the dynamics during the elections, the top security issues, or the top issues in the elections, such as corruption, and a woman standing up and fighting for democratic rights, despite the type of very misogynistic attitudes that she had to deal with. That's really fascinating. Would you like to talk a little bit more about the security landscape within Moldova? It's a very young country. It's a former Soviet state, former Soviet socialist state. What are its top security considerations, both internal and external? You talked a little bit about geopolitics and the domestic environment. Would you like to tell us a little bit more?
Yes, thank you for question, Saira. Yes, Republic of Moldova is a young country that declared its independence in 1991. And since its independence, the national security of Republic of Moldova has directly depend on dynamics of at the regional, at the international level. First of all, how you mentioned it, the persisting effects of bipolar world system that existed in past, alongside with the instability of a post-Soviet space, are the circumstances that generate multiple threats and risks for national security of Republic of Moldova. One of these, it is the illegal presence of foreign military troops on the territory of the country, and the phenomena of political separatism that generated the Transnistrian conflict. As a result, the Republic of Moldova lost control over eastern region. This region have a lot of problem with human rights, first of all. The population are systematically violated by separatist regime structure. More than that, lack of control is very comfortable for organized crime, illegal traffic of ammunition, drugs, and human beings. Internally, at the internal level, the political situation in the Republic of Moldova has been relatively unstable. You mentioned it, especially since 2009. Neither party has a parliamentary majority. This was a catalyst for political instability in the Republic of Moldova. Republic of Moldova has faced several political crises during the last few years, which has caused the population mistrust in the government. That is a specific for Moldova, especially if you speak about threats and risk. It is the existing threats, existing interconnection between threats and internal or domestic vulnerabilities. The effect of the vulnerabilities may determine accentuation and manifestation of existing threats, as well as generate new ones at the national level. For example, there are a correlation between the political crisis at the national level, the weakness of the state, you mentioned it, the weakness in special of governmental institution in this case, and external aggression. Or how the European Parliament has noted a lack of political will to depolitize the state institution. The last event in the post-Soviet space suggests that Russia has replaced the military takeover of foreign territories, a costly classical approach for foreign aggression, with a complex set of active measures aimed at compromise Moldova's political system. In this situation, the vulnerability of Moldovan political situation could be used very successful by Russian Federation in the context of hybrid war, for example. At the same time, we have another vulnerability that influence our very correlated with threats at the risk. The excessive dependency of Republic of Moldova of external energy resources, for example, from Russian gas, in the context of geopolitical situation, Russian interest in the region, in the context that we depend on Russian gas, in the context of non-solved conflict, the threats could easily to grow into threats, very big threats to national security. At the same time, as a post-Soviet state, we are vulnerable because of economic migration or tendencies of social polarization and immigration of high qualified specialists. And I mentioned it during our discussion. For us at the moment, we are vulnerable because the country is parliamentary republic, despite having a directly elected president. Both, given its highly divided society and a lot of fraction in political system, every parliamentary election can potentially bring a radical change in the country and to bring a lot of problems and issues for national security. Without a parliamentary majority and a government, Maia Sandu will be not to change something, will be only the symbol of change, but not the change itself. And another big issue, another big vulnerability for Republic of Moldova, it is neutrality. You are a neutral state. That means we don't agree. We are not part of defense policy or another defense organization, international organization, military organization, and we not admit the foreign troop on our territory. But we not control the western part of territory. But neutrality is considered the base of Moldovan security. Moldova could not benefit from the neutrality like other neutral country from Europe. And we have in this case an example how work with neutrality regarding the situation in Ukraine. Ukraine was a neutral country too. Furthermore, Russia has recognized Ukrainian borders in 1997 to include Crimea. Nevertheless, never Ukraine's neutrality nor recognition of its borders would not have prevented Russian from annexing Crimea. Crimea now it is part of Russian Federation. And this regional situation regarding conflict in Ukraine, we have now situation in Nagorno-Karabakh influence the national security of Republic of Moldova. Republic of Moldova's weak states depend. If she is vulnerable at the internal level, she will be more vulnerable at the external level. In this context, we have some lesson learned. We change the threat perception. For example, the threat of direct foreign intervention came back as a major security concern. At the same time, intervention, the hybrid war, it was introduced as concept in our national defense strategy, for example. And now we have common understanding, and we expect that Maia Sandu will promote to elaborate, to consolidate our strategic communication, especially in the security and defense. And we have a lot of expectation regarding Maia Sandu presidency because we hope that she will influence our foreign policy, but not structurally, but more institutionally, because we now, because of current President Dodon, we lost some relations, some friendly relations, some organization on other partners. And Maia Sandu will have to relaunch the collaboration with West, for example, and especially with our neighbors as Romania and Ukraine. And I hope she will consolidate the collaboration framework with European Union, NATO, USA regarding our security needs, our real interest, our real security needs. And finally, but it's very important, actually Maia Sandu will face huge challenges. He will have very challenges, issues on his security agenda, not least dealing with the coronavirus pandemic and the economy. The impact of the invisible threats didn't avoid the Republic of Moldova. The epidemiological situation in Moldova is much worse than in other similar states. In terms of population and territory, if you compare population and territory, which directly affected human security in the country. For our region, COVID is not only epidemiology, it is a crisis with long-term ramification for security challenges. For example, Transnistria region, where we have separatism, use this COVID regime and limits the circulation on the region. The positive or negative lesson learned we have from pandemic that provide valuable experience for future crises and how they should improve our state resilience. But resilience is very important in this situation. But I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to say you that we have a partners country that help us during the pandemics. For example, NATO countries as Romania, Hungary, Lithuania, Slovakia, USA first of all, and NATO partners country as Austria, and Russia also sent some help during the pandemic. The most important support came from European Union during the pandemic crisis, and it has had several dimensions. First of all, European Union directed a lot of financial support from existing project towards initiative mitigating negative situation of the crisis. European Union supplied critical medical equipment and offered the assistance that will be used for strengthening the country's capacity to respond to public health emergencies. In this situation, I hope that the new president will find compromise with Parliament and to put on security agenda not only hard issues, but also human security.
Yes, very interesting, Natalia. Thank you so much. Elena, the next question is for you. Maia Sandu is pro-EU, pro-West, and former President Dodon was pro-Russia. The international media has widely stereotyped these elections as a geopolitical contest between the democratic West and Putin's Russia. How difficult would it be for Ms. Sandu to move away from Russia? How will she manage this relationship and move closer to the EU?
Yes, indeed. It's a challenging situation and first of all, challenging question for our new president elected. As you know, she was first of all elected being pro-European because this time preferred candidate was that candidate that promised Western-styled reform, and Maia Sandu has done this. She is a former prime minister, and during her political career, she always was, let's say, ticketed like pro-European. and of course Dodon being pro-Russia and openly supported by Kremlin. In this case, Sandu first problem is to maintain this relationship with Russian Federation. I would like to mention that President Putin already congratulated Maia Sandu, and she already met with Russian Federation ambassador in our country, understanding very well the importance of good collaboration with the Russian Federation. Natalia mentioned that we had a problem during last years to have like more isolated foreign policy. Even it was promoted like, let's say, equilibrate foreign policy. It was more oriented to the East. But our main financial partner, all our donors, let's say, and all our humanitarian aids are coming from the West, of course, from the European Union, from our strategic partner like Romania and the US, especially in the security and defense reform. Electing Maia Sandu, we understand, first of all, it's a sign that we would like to approach to the European Union. And of course, we have many hopes that will happen. And already we have seen that European Union, all the, let's say, Western developed countries supported and congratulated Maia Sandu with this situation, meaning that we're approaching our country to European Union. So Sandu's Action and Solidarity Party has both pro-European and pro-reform stances. That means that her presidency will contribute to the purification, first of all, of the presidency, but the reform agenda will stagnate as a result of limited political will beyond the presidential office. Don't forget that she has more limited forces in foreign and security policy. And our parliament, the majority of the seats in the parliament are of the socialists. So we have the hope that she will reapproach European Union and all the efforts will be oriented to this. But don't forget that Russian Federation has a lot of instruments to influence Republic of Moldova policy through political parties, soft power, propaganda, disinformation, and this collaboration with Russian Federation from the Maia Sandu will be like a model of equilibrating, first of all, our historical and geopolitical situation, and for the other side, reapproaching country to the European Union. I would like to compare him presidency with the presidency of Slovakia president Zuzana Kaputova, who promised to root political corruption and reform and judicial system. And this is the same, we could see the similarity with our Maia Sandu. So like a conclusion, Maia Sandu will continue the policy of collaborating with Russian Federation, but we consider that all her efforts will be oriented to reapproach our country to the European Union and to stop this division of our citizens, pro-European, pro-East, because as Natalia mentioned, one of our problems that impact our national security and human security as well is this very strong society division in East, West, speaking Russian, Romanian or Moldovan, believing in this history or another one. So first of all, it will be the first step to unite the citizens around a national and around our national interest.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very interesting. Please comment on the role that women have played in Moldova's democratic process. And are there any lessons that other countries, the world, can learn from all of you?
Thank you very much for your question. But I have in my mind another question to answer to you. If citizen, people, government understand what is a democratic process, because we have a different meaning, different understanding what is a democracy. And I will try to emphasize what is a democracy for us, for Republic of Moldova, for a citizen, for population, to understand the role of women in the democratic process. And it is known that the democratic process implies effective participation, yes, equal voting, enlightening, understanding the issues involved, and control of the democratic agenda. In this respect, the two most popular definitions of democracy in the Republic of Moldova are human rights and equality. I find this in the recently public barometer that was a national survey conducted in 2017. But I would like to emphasize that we have very friendly legislation regarding equality. More than, according to World Bank report, 150 countries have at least one law that is discriminatory against or toward women. Republic of Moldova is not in this list. I'm so glad for that. At the same time, democratic process is the process of expressing primary political rights through decision-making. Namely, in this context are the most divergences and dilemmas in the Republic of Moldova. In fact, the representation of women in the decision-making process in the Republic of Moldova is very non-uniform, and it depends on the administrative level and on political events occurred each year. Because I emphasize it, it is about political crisis and instability. But women access as well as the possibility to integrate and assert themselves is a career that offers managerial function and decision-making power, especially in areas traditionally associated with men, such as diplomacy, safety and security, public order, are still considerably influenced by society's views on women's role in such context or in such profession. But due to fundamental transformation of gender relation in modern Western world and of the scope of the phenomenon of migration in Moldova, a lot of changes can be revealed at the level of social relation and relation of power. The driving force which generated such changes is the increase of women educational level. Statistical data shows that women in the Republic of Moldova are characterized by a high level of intellectual capital, and we have to use this intellectual capital. More than that, the World Bank shown that increasing women's access to quality education, good jobs, for example, land, because in our country we have with problem of properties, and other resources contribute to inclusive growth, sustainable development, and long-term prosperity. In the country, women's participation in entrepreneurship, women in business has improved over the past 10 years. Such changes have an impact not only on women's position in society, but also on the country's economy, local business, on the states in general. From my point of view, this is a strong premise in the effective involvement of women in political life and decision-making when you empower women. And we have a different projects supported by, for example, UN Women, UNDP in Republic of Moldova that empower women not only in business activity, but also they empower women how to dealing with election process, how to present, and other tools. In general, the issues of women at the decision making in Republic of Moldova are very divided, and it's very challenging, because for one hand, people don't accept, because we are conservative, participation of women in the politics. But at the same time, during national survey, if women are not present at the decision making, women enjoy a high level of people trust compared to men who participate in politics. Thus, greater public confidence was expressed towards women working in the parliament, government, and district authorities too. Now we have a first woman president, and people expect that she will fight corruption first of all. She believes in her. I would like to emphasize that it's very important that people confidence in women working in decision-making bodies at the local level is higher among women than men. For example, they trust more in mayor as a woman. In fact, of the total number of elected mayor, only 22% are women, but they are appreciated due to the methods of obtaining funding for local projects. It's very important. They agree that instrument, tools, the way that adopted to women. And in this context, we have very important instrument, legal. The National Strategy of Ensuring Gender Equality, adopted in 2016, that encourage the political party to tackle women's empowerment and to increase women participation, including women from disadvantaged groups, vulnerable groups, by setting a rule on quotas and order in the electoral list for the parliamentary and local election, and setting sanction for not observing them, not included in the list. In this case, for example, following the parliamentary election held on February 24 in 2019, over 25% of Moldovan MPs are women. It is a very good result for Republic of Moldova, high number. And I would like here, if you speak about lesson learned or good practices, I would like to emphasize the quota, how to use this quota, because in 2016, our parliament adopted a mandatory 40% gender quota for candidates of both genders, included on the political list, party lists. Generally, we found it's a good practice to use the gender quota as a temporary measure for increasing critical mass of women at the professional level. Because the gender inequalities on the labor market lead to unequal chances for women in decision-making in special, and vice versa. The lack of women in management and decision-making positions limit the adoption of relevant policies to ensure equal opportunities and inclusive societies. Finally, to conclude, our statistical data show that women not only account for about 52% of the total stable population of the Republic of Moldova, but also 33% of voters with a high level of participation in election in comparison with women. During a presidential election, more women voted. In this respect, for me, from my point of view, democracy means more than just increasing the number of women in politics. It is about women participation in policy making, both at the domestic and international level.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalia. I've come to my last question now. And perhaps, Yelena, you could answer it first, and then Natalia could also respond to it. Moldova has a national action plan on women, peace, and security aligned with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. What are its key features? And please tell us about the implementation plan. What are some of the challenges you faced, and what are some of the opportunities that you would like to share or like to talk about? Yelena.
Yes, this plan, first of all, is our proud, even we are from the last countries in Europe having this plan. But thanks to this, that it is one of the last, we used all best practices from the region and from Europe, having the assistance of a USA profile organization. And it's really our proud, and it's a sign that we recognized the role of women in defense and security sector. It was quite difficult to lobby this and to promote the topic. We, with Natalia, one of the activists that promoted this topic in our country, and for the first time at the policy level, Republic of Moldova committed to implement the resolution 1325 in 2014, I suppose, yes, within our individual partnership action plan with NATO, and after this assuming the same action for the next next IPAP, having a separate action regarding the implementation of the resolution 1325. An important foundation for the development of this national action plan was the interinstitutional gender perspective self-evaluation, as it was a GCAF questionnaire, and we understood, thanks to this questionnaire, what our gaps are, what needs do we have, and starting with 2015, with a series of dialogues, round tables, as I said, many discussions with our MPs, ministries, ministers, convincing them that we have this kind of gaps, we have this kind of needs, and we would need this kind of national action plan. So it was a long process of 2 years of drafting, and first of all understanding why do we need this, what action to be included, and finally in 2017 was adopted this national action plan, and having in mind all the gaps, all the challenges that were analyzed during all these years. Thanks to this national action plan, now because this action plan was drafted within the project funded by NATO Science for Peace program, and the support with UN Women as well. Now we are in fully implementation of this plan, and I would like to mention the role of civil society in promoting and organizing all this process, because it was not so easy. It was first of all a democratic exercise to gather together all the institutions from the security sector, but labor, health, education, all the ministries and agencies like customs service or carabinieri, so different around the table, understanding how can we together contribute to the implementation of the resolution 1325. And the challenge was to understand the specific of our country, because it was a lot of stereotypes, and that we don't need, that we are neutral, that we don't have conflict, that we have sufficient women, so many stereotypes typical for the region and for the other countries. But first of all, we needed to understand what exactly Republic of Moldova needs and how to include this in our national action plan. understanding that well-formulated national action plan is, first of all, a platform for interinstitutional coordination efforts due to the lack of the budget dedicated to this plan and due to the limited human resources that will implement the plan. And the specific was that only four institutions from 13 participating in the drafting national action plan, they drafted their individual institutional action plan to implement. Other institutions considered that this national plan is sufficient. So a very important role played civil society in promoting, organizing the process, having like the engine of the process this time was civil society demonstrating the effect and the success of the collaboration of civil society, donors, experts, and governmental institutions, helping governmental institutions to organize themselves.
Thank you, Elena. Natalia, would you like to briefly also comment?
I would like only to emphasize some challenges during the elaboration of the National Action Plan. But first of all, a very important challenge it is if we need or not or to elaborate a National Action Plan. I think all countries that have the same problem because we try to find a very relevant, strong argument why Republic of Moldova needs this kind of plan. When we started to organize a working group to elaborate the national program on implementing Resolution 3025, we are facing another dilemma, to have an individual strategy or integrated strategy. Some governmental representative would like to include the action plan on Resolution 3025 in our biggest strategy, more comprehensive. But others argued that a standalone NAP should exist. They explained that NAP would bring more targeted attention to the women, peace and security agenda, and it would also lead to greater ownership from Moldovan government agency to implement activities included in the plan. And we decided to have own plan because it is better to integrate the specific objective from the security and defense sector. As Elena mentioned it, this program, adopted program on Resolution 3025, we call program non plan, contributes as well to increasing cooperation between ministry. It's good, very great team because we put together the representatives of different ministries from the security and defense sector, and they try to understand each issues because how countries are different at the regional international level, so the institutions are different, they have different problems. And we adopted two main goals according to main problem. We don't have inclusive security societies. On the other hand, we have at internal level, we have to provide different regulations and different policy regarding behavior in the institution and how to integrate gender dimension. In this respect, I would like to emphasize that, how said Elena, that ambitious plan do not necessarily do so or make sufficient changes. But it is very important that in the context, in the current environment with COVID pandemics, we have common understanding that we need this kind of plan because, for example, we have objective 2 and 5 to combine professional life and family, And we use this objective during the professional activities to combine professional life and family life and to undertake special measures such as flexible work program or remote work. And now government understands how it's useful. Unfortunately, it was very difficult to integrate in this plan the human security regarding our citizen on non-controlled territory in Transnistria, because it's not transparent region, we not control, it's very difficult to integrate these issues because to not provoke them, because we are interested in the negotiation process, because we have a special group that negotiate human rights in this field.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much to both of you. I learned so much about your very fascinating country, and I hope I get to visit one day very soon. And I commend you both for your excellent work on women, peace, and security, for the design, development, and implementation of the National Action Plan, as well as democratic institution building. Well done to Moldova. And I would also like to thank our viewers for listening to us today and joining us in this session on Women, Peace and Security, Conversations with Thought Leaders.